Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Monday, the 9th day of July, 2018. Don't go to 17. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend. Beautiful weather, pretty hot on some days. But nevertheless, any day above ground is always a good day as well. A few fender benders here and there on the road. Also, again, we're seeing the number of traffic accidents increasing on the roads. We wonder whether or not it is a combination of things. One person pointed out to me still the continued use of cell phones while persons are driving, and rather than using a hands-free system, they're still concentrating on their cell phones and using them. We see many rear enders on the road, and 9 times out of 10, when there's a rear ender, it means that the driver at the rear is not paying attention, not seeing what's happening. There's some type of distraction. Is that distraction as a result of using a communicating device like a phone in the car? We talk about whether or not we need sufficient robust testing for new drivers on the roads as well. The quality of driving on the roads leaves much to be desired. Whether or not the fact that people are driving under the influence, be it alcohol or other drugs, maybe even prescription drugs, is that a cause as well? I know for sure, certainly, that whatever the causes may be, you can expect insurance rates to go up as a result. So it is definitely in the best interest of the government, the insurers, and the insured to try to do something to keep the number of motor vehicle accidents as low as possible. We need to look at the driver's testing system to see whether or not we need to really enhance it. We need to look at the number of cars that are on the road. Can everyone really who comes to these islands be expected to own a motor vehicle? So something that we want to continue to talk about on For the Record, because it is increasingly becoming an issue in the Cayman Islands, the number of vehicular accidents on the roads. With those introductory comments, I'd like to thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. Of course, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I'm your host, Orit Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. During that period, our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls, normally. That beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number, and put these numbers, please put them on speed dial, because Some of you still have to send me a WhatsApp message, and I have an iPad in front of me. I have a laptop in front of me. I have two phones, one checking the WhatsApp for the record, checking my WhatsApp as well. So I can't always, sometimes I may miss your message when it comes through. So put these numbers on speed dial, so when you hear something that resonates with you and you want to call in, that you can call in right away. Toll-free number, 1-800-534-8255. I will repeat, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. You can email us at For the Record, that is one word, For the Record at candw.ky. We have a WhatsApp number, 925-3261, where you can send us a voice note or leave us a text message. If you send us a voice note, the contents of that voice note will be played during the course of the show. And of course, we have streaming YouTube, and you can subscribe to that by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream as well. So, again, put the numbers on speed dial. If you want a free call, 1-800-534-8255. No excuses to get in touch. And you get a bonus again this morning because we're due to have guests in the studio. They're not here yet, so we're going to have open mic in the meantime, allowing you to call in and express your views and your concerns about what's happening in the country as well. I was out in my yard, and I'm a backyard farmer, and I have 3 breadfruit trees. I can talk about the breadfruit trees now because everybody is a bumper crop of breadfruits, so you don't have to worry about people coming around and taking them at this point in time. But one tree can't be any more than about 12 feet tall, if that, and it's loaded. Yellow heart, as a matter of fact, last season, some of the limbs broke simply because it couldn't take the weight of the breadfruit. So we don't have a bumper crop of mangoes this year. Everywhere shortage of mangoes. Some, even the local, they are what we used to call the long mangoes and the round mangoes. Some of those trees did not bear this year either. But we certainly have a bumper crop of breadfruits. I don't know from a nutritional standpoint whether or not the breadfruits can take the place of the mangoes. If you go by the size of them, where it would normally take 12 mangoes to make a dozen, with the breadfruits, because of their size, you only need about 4 or 5 of them to make a dozen. Just a joke. Some Caymanians will get that joke, others will not get it. But certainly a bumper crop of breadfruits this year, as well. I see in Jamaica where they are commercializing the breadfruit. You can get breadfruit chips. They've set up factories for the processing of breadfruits. We talk about local industries here in the Cayman Islands. Breadfruits are plentiful, the same way that we're looking, and we will be exporting iguana meat. Why don't we do something about the breadfruits? Why do they have to stay on those trees, drop, because you don't have enough space in your refrigerator to keep them, in your freezer to keep them? And then when the season is off, everyone is going around looking, begging for breadfruits, and then you have to pay these exorbitant prices for them. Also, I'm made to understand sometimes it's not unusual at some places to pay $4 and $5 for a breadfruit when they're not in season. So again, an opportunity, for us to do that as well. What else do we want to talk about this morning? Off-reg. One of the print newspapers seem now to have a particular fetish for off-reg, and maybe other members of the public will join in as well, because many of them have questioned the usefulness of our off-reg and really what has that particular organization been able to deliver for the ordinary person. People complain about the quality of service that they get from their television providers. They complain about the quality of service that they get in other areas as well. What is off-reg doing? Maybe you guys want to come in to For the Record on a government day and talk about what you're doing. $1 million spent on consultants, over 100 and something thousand beyond what was budgeted for that area. Seem as if they have staff there who, while they're quite motivated and eager, are not necessarily fully equipped for the jobs that they have been given. What are you doing to upgrade their skills? First of all, we trust that they're Caymanians who you have employed there. And if they're Caymanians and they're not up to speed, what are you doing to upgrade their skill set for them to be able to do that as well? Switching gears, because I can switch gears like a standard transmission, Volkswagen or anything else. Had occasion to go to the airport the other day. Almost got lost there. I think I may have mentioned this on Friday. I almost got lost. I went across the crosswalk, and if it wasn't for a good taxi driver friend of mine, said, "OC, where are you going? What are you looking for?" I said, "Well, where is it that you go now for the arrivals area?" "Oh, you go through those two big glass doors there, and when you walk in there are seats in there for you to sit down. There are lines that are demarcating where those who are waiting to greet people can stand to meet them when they come out from the customs area. Chairs for you to sit down as well, nicely air conditioned. Those drivers who are there to pick up specific passengers, they're there with their play cards, holding up and everything else. Really, really, really nice. I haven't traveled since March of this year, so I haven't really been on the air side part of things, but certainly things are going well. I know people are complaining about possible cost overruns. I keep hearing stories about bathrooms not being available once you get off the aircraft. If you travel and if you on any flight of any distance over or length of time over an hour, you know that when you get off that flight, the first place that you want to head for is the bathroom. But I do recall asking that question and was assured that bathrooms would be positioned so that as soon as you got off the aircraft, going into the immigration area, that you would have that. Maybe because of the renovations that are still taking place, that hasn't happened yet. But if you know otherwise, please feel free to call in and let us know what's happening. But so far, the airport is really going well. One more thing I'll talk about. Had occasion last week also to be in one of the civic centers at a funeral. Good friend of mine and good friend of many people, and that was attested to by the number of people who attended Mr. Brasley McLean's funeral last week Sunday. And when I look, and the civic center, not sure when it was built. I would venture to say that the civic centers were probably built sometime in the 80s or 90s. We have a tendency in the Cayman Islands to be short-sighted as far as a vision of what we will need in the future is concerned. We always build, and we build in such a way that after handful of years, 5, 10 years, we have to expand because we haven't thought that far ahead. Again, Owen Roberts International Airport is a prime example of that. Opened in 1985, and of course, while it was a small airport, it had 2 openings, 2 official openings, but of course those were for political reasons. But again, before we actually entered that building, Owen Roberts International Airport in 1985, we had already outgrown it as well. Have to take a commercial break now, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio, so we're taking this opportunity for our most important guests, our listeners, to get involved in the conversation this morning. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Jose.
Good morning. How are you?
I just heard you mention about breadfruit just now, and I thought I'd share some things that might revitalize it a bit. You know, I know my mother used to make a lot of breadfruit cake with the ripe breadfruit, also the green too, but I like the ripe one better. And it's all in. To me, it's in line there with cassava cake and yam cake. But I don't see much with being made, and I think it would be a good way for a lot of these senior citizen ladies thing here to make a little extra money to make some breadfruit cakes and sell them to the supermarkets or restaurants. Also, these days you can peel it and slice it up and put it in the freezer. It can last long. But I recall that the old people had a way of preserving the breadfruit. They would get some of the stand off the beach and bury them stem down with the top a little open. But some of the older people will be able to call in and say exactly how they did it. But it preserved the breadfruit for a very long time. I think, just stick them down the salt stand there. And that's why I mentioned these few things about the breadfruit that maybe can, like I said, make a bit of income to some of the older ladies around Cayman. Right?
Thank you very much, caller, for that. I was reading an article, I think it was on BBC News a few weeks ago, in relation to the origins of the breadfruit and the whole story of Captain Cook and everything. And there's so many different ways that you can use breadfruit. For instance, here in Cayman, we're accustomed to the fit breadfruit. That's what there are some cultures where the young breadfruit is what is more attractive to people and what they use, for various other things. I've heard about things like breadfruit ice cream, as well, being made from breadfruit. You can make the flour from breadfruit flour as well. And I'm going to throw this suggestion out there. Hopefully someone from government is listening in. This coming Saturday, the 14th, I believe it is, the Botanic Gardens will be having their Mango Festival. Someone should give some thought to having a breadfruit festival as well. We really need to expand on some of the things that we do in the Cayman Islands and give people, more choices. So those who love mangoes will go to the Mango Festival. Those who love breadfruits might be able to go to the Breadfruit Festival. You can have a breadfruit and a mango festival all in one as well. But again, we are becoming so hooked on processed foods that are not good for your health that we still have many indigenous fruits to the Cayman Islands. Or I shouldn't just say fruits, but foods in the Cayman Islands, and we need to stick to those as well. We need to market them more. We need to expose our people more often to these things as well, rather than continuously embracing those things and those ideas that are imported into the Cayman Islands. I'm going to switch gears one more time before we go to our 8 o'clock news, and I'm going to one of our overseas territories, British Virgin Islands. We have always talked about the right of self-determination here in the Cayman Islands. And there's an article in Bermuda, if you go on to Platinum News, July 9th, 2018. And there's a gentleman by the name of Reverend Turnbull. I think that's his name. Let me make sure. Yes, Reverend Turnbull, who speaks, Reverend Dr. Melvin A. Turnbull, who speaks of there are economic benefits from UK relationship, and that is the UK, BVI's relationship with the UK. We have mentioned it here in the Cayman Islands. Of course, we don't talk as much about the right of self-determination that we need to. We have not spoken as much as we should about that, but of course, we see the conversation taking place in other jurisdictions as well. But I'm told that we have a caller, so we're going to give that caller preference over me reading or taking excerpts from this particular article. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Connor. Thanks for taking my call. Quincy here from the BRAC.
Morning, Quincy. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing this
I'm fine, thanks.
Morning? Excellent. Just advising motorists in the Creek Northeast Bay area that if you're approaching the Port Authority here at the dock, do so with caution, as the public, the BRAC Power and Light Company are doing some work in the area of Dan and Lisa Scott's residence, which is just adjacent to the Port Authority here at the Creek. So whether you're coming from a westerly or you're coming from an easterly direction, please approach with caution. Power and Light are doing work in the area. Please let you know that the member from BRAC East has sent a request to the Cabinet Secretary to find out if there's any monies available so that a reporter can be placed on the sister islands. And I'm also pleased to let you know that I'm just coming from the Creek Police Station, where I have applied for the position of media liaison for the sister islands. Let's see what happens as our people look for work. You have a great day. Keep up the good work, Mr. Connor.
Don't go yet, Quincy. Stay on there. This media liaison position that they're advertising for it, did it have any specifications in terms of what they're looking for? Like, for instance, we would really be looking for someone who's resident in the BRAC as opposed to someone elsewhere who, if they hire, they may have to give some perks in relation to accommodations and everything else?
That's a very good question. I am cognizant that the news is coming up very shortly. To be honest with you, this is not an advertised position. I've applied for it simply because BRAC police officers have encouraged me to apply for it.
Okay.
They know that I have the background, the qualifications. They know that I have the experience. I remember when Deborah Dennis, Mike Cancel, and Kafara Augustin filled the roles over in Grand Cayman. Here on the BRAC, what is needed is a dedicated person who can work with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service to be sort of like a mediator between the police and the media houses to disseminate information. We don't have that here. So it's not an advertised position. Hopefully those within the civil service, the powers that be, will create such a position.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to answer your question, right? I've just applied for it because I've been encouraged to do so by BRAC police officers because they see the need as well as a community media officer. So I've applied. Let's see what happens. If I get it, I'll be happy. If I don't get the position, I'll be a volunteer because I do it anyway.
Right. Good idea. Excellent idea, Quincy. All the best. Wish you all the best of luck with that. Hope someone takes you up on that offer as well. Folks, we reached that time of the morning where we're going to our 8 o'clock news. We have a time check, and then we will go to the 8 o'clock news. When we return, the conversation will continue. If we have no guests, we will continue talking to you, and hopefully you will talk with me. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. As I pointed out earlier, no persons in the studio, no guests in the studio with us this morning. Not sure what happened to our guests who were supposed to appear on here. I've been trying to make a few phone calls as well. And also trying to reach Mr. Alfonso Wright. He wasn't scheduled to be on the show this morning, but you would have heard him when he called us. I think it may have been on Friday or Wednesday one day, and Wednesday it was. So I pointed out to him, whenever we had a slot, we would let him know. And if you're on to Mr. Fonzo this morning, even if he comes in at 9 o'clock, we can still have half an hour to talk about celebrating or coat of arms and the year-long celebration that is taking place as well. Meanwhile, we continue with our conversation here. Any calls, Ms. Susan? We have no calls at this point in time, and I promised you that we would talk a little bit about BVI and Reverend Turnbull and his statement that there are economic benefits from the UK relationship. We have questioned here in the Cayman Islands what those economic benefits are, and I guess depending on the position that you take, you can argue either way for or against that particular statement. And Reverend Turnbull said that in 1998, while he was pursuing a degree at one of the local community colleges in the BVI, the H.L. Stout Community College, he wrote a research paper on the economic impact of the BVI's relationship with Britain. The research paper investigates the impact of Britain on the British Virgin Islands with a view of projecting what the future relationship should look like. He had asked the real question, are we benefiting from our relationship with Britain? The answer is Britain, because their delinquency permitted a number of things to take place. Nevertheless, we turned that around and made it so good, yes, with some help from them, that we become now something that we are proud of and even envious of. Pastor Turnbull said, for example, we have acquired a status that should have been the reserve for the metropolitan countries. However, we must understand our interest economically and that of Britain are not always going to be the same. He added that when it comes to doing what is best for the long-term interests and sustainability of the British Virgin Islands, the protection and preservation of the integrity of the jurisdiction must rest with the people of the Virgin Islands, not any other country. We do have economic benefits of the BVI-UK relationship. Over the years, Britain has moved from the giving of grants to financial aid to technical service. For example, projects funded by the British government in the past included new prisons building, $4.1 million, new police barracks, $900,000, UK technical training, $400,000, and other projects, he said. He, however, noted that the conversation about self-determination must begin more meaningfully and it must continue with the people leading the conversation. So I agree with that part of it. When he talks about financial assistance from the UK, we're fortunate here in the Cayman Islands that we do not have to rely on that. And it would appear to me that those countries that still have to rely on some financial assistance from the UK government are going to be more reluctant. And you can understand why to want to sever any ties, whether or not those ties be completely severed or whether or not there are still some strings attached as well. 2 callers. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Lucy. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
Well, as I listen and I read and I see things that's happening in this, and I'm a little disappointed with a lot of things. But the one thing that I think maybe you should try to get some information on this thing called offering. I call it awful regulation, where they just spent another $1 million. If you read today's Compass.
You tuned in late, caller. I mentioned that already, but go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned it.
Oh,
right?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I don't miss a beat.
Because this is getting to the point now where what I do.
Ms. Susan, we may have lost that caller. Caller, are you there? No, I think it may be his phone. Let's go to the next caller. Hopefully he'll call back. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Connor.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, not hanging in. You were talking about the traffic earlier.
Yes, sir.
I want to mention I was sitting on, as usual, in the evening time, looking at the traffic passing on I live on Walker's Road, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a police car with the windows black. They weren't tinted, they were black. You could not see anybody inside of it. Now, how can they prosecute people for not removing the tints off their window when they're doing the same thing? I guess the old saying is, do as I say, but not as I do. And I've been driving from December 1955, and I haven't got a ticket as yet, but I guess that's all in the past now, because by reporting this, I'm nearly sure that I'll be targeted. I just couldn't help from calling in and reporting this.
Yes, Captain Paul.
Okay. That's all I have to say. Have a good day.
Before you go, Captain Paul, I don't know if you heard on the last show, or it could have been on Wednesday, I pointed out that I checked your license plate number that you gave me. I checked that on the DVDL's website, and there's no indication there. The list that they have with all of the license plate numbers that are available, yours wasn't available.
That, Mr. Connor, and I thank you so much for that.
Okay, and I'll save that number, and I'll continue to to check on it as well for you. But don't be afraid about getting that ticket. We would hope that the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, I don't think that they would target you just for complaining about their tint and stuff like that. And it is an excellent point, and whether or not there are reasons for police cars to be tinted as opposed to regular vehicles, then maybe someone can point that out to us as well, Captain Paul.
Yeah, well, what I would think, thank you so much. I heard that announcement, and I thank you so much for it. But if they have a special mission go, it should not be a police car. It should be
unmarked
unmarked
yeah.
car.
Mm-hmm.
It's room for a lot of improvement. Thank you so much, and you have a nice day.
Thank you very much to Captain Paul. We're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned For the Record. We'll be back shortly. That caller who was disconnected, it wasn't on our side of things as well, but you may want to try calling back. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio, so we're going to have open mic all morning. There was a time when I was first started to do this show, I would get all nervous when my guest didn't show up, and I had to sort of like feel my way through those 2 hours. That is history now. I have built up my confidence on radio. I do my research to make sure that if there's no one here to talk with me, then I have something to talk about, as well. So that nervousness, that fear is no longer there. As a matter of fact, sometimes I welcome the days when I don't have guests in the studio as well. One of our listeners has written in and said, "Good morning, OC. Thanks for highlighting this great suggestion to market a Cayman Breadfruit Festival. It is a phenomenal idea. It will be a success. It can have 2 target markets. Our children and people need to be invited to explore the cultural cuisine threads steeped in our history. The tourist segment can be regulated with our alternative to the potato and all that this entails. Great job. So yeah, using the breadfruit as an alternative to the potato. Don't have to import that. And again, a high source, a rich source of carbohydrates is our breadfruit. I say ours came from somewhere else. It came from the Pacific, in the Pacific, but we have adopted it. Well, they brought it here for us. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning. How is it in hell? How is it in hell?
All right, cool. Now, a little bit more. You missed me. You stayed on too long. Breadfruit, not my. You know, I came from the breadfruit district of West Bay. We used to have breadfruit wars.
Yeah, I know. Especially after sports day.
Okay, my good friend we called in. I don't know who he was, but tell him, try put the breadfruit in the sun, see what happens. It ripens quicker. It's ripening quicker.
Okay.
And everything, it gets so, I mean, you know, if you leave it out and cut it or leave it out and try to ripen it, you'll have some hard spots. But you put it in the sun, every pig is soft.
So what's the best way to preserve it? Other than refrigeration?
To preserve it, I do not know, but I know on the sailboats, you used to roast them and hang them up and cut off them for days and weeks. But these days, I don't know, they some people freeze them and cut them up and freeze them, you know, while the season is on. And I believe to put it in water in the plastic bag and freeze them.
Now,
that's what I heard. I mean, I never tried it. But the one with the sun, I tried that. And every pig, you know, we have right barefoot cake, so people like that. So that's where I do it, mine. And I don't lose nothing out of it. But if you just leave it out, make it ripen, it will, you know, have some hard spots in it.
Mr. Devil, I'm not sure if you refer to them in West Bay the same as we refer to them in Jamaica, but I hear me in Jamaica, in Georgetown. But we used to call them floaters. Do you have any idea why they were called floaters?
No. They used to call, the people at the Logwoods all used to call the dumplings floaters too. So I heard about the breadfruit floaters and stuff. I don't know where that name come from. I know the dumplings, some of them will be the flour dumplings that separate dumplings, they'll be on top. So they used to call them floaters too. So the breadfruits, I'm not too sure how that got that name.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ivan, thank you very much for that. Have a great day as our tourism ambassador there in hell. Not many countries have an ambassador in hell, you know. One more caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Ossie.
Hey, morning, Billy. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. It's good to speak to you again this morning together with your listening public.
Same here.
I just wanted to say something about, I saw something on TV, the Premier was talking about the needs assessment unit.
Yes. And
how the demand upon that unit have grown, even if the unemployment rate has been going, even if there are less people who are unemployed now, but it seems that there are problems there. But basically the point I want to make is this. The economy, as everybody has been saying, the economy is doing reasonably well, and yet how come the unemployment rate is not responding to the same extent? Yes. In fact, I think last time it ticked up again just a little bit. Now, to me, I think there's a fundamental problem there. It was very interesting to hear the Premier say, hey, this is concerning, but it needs analysis. And I was very shocked. It needs analysis? I don't think it needs analysis. I think the problems are related, first of all, like this same needs assessment unit problem of numbers needing help going up. They are related to the unemployment rate, to the foreclosure problems, which also leads to crime, delinquency, and problem with kids doing badly at school.
And the high cost of living as well?
Exactly, the high cost of living. And to me, the problem in Cayman, I think, I want to make really a broad general statement, is that in Cayman, generally speaking, there have been no fundamental changes. During my 15 years here, there have been no fundamental changes to the things that are necessary to deal with these problems in a significant way. You see, for example, people have always said, why don't you have certain jobs for Caymanians? I thought that was very simple, because to begin with, that is the policy of the government in the sense that Caymanians must be given preference. It is just that if such a policy were adopted, it would achieve the result much better.
And as Dr. Steve Markfield will point out to us, it is an option that our Constitution gives us, allows us to do that as well.
I've heard him multiple times, say that, and he is so right about that. But somehow there is a problem there. But of course, the reason why they don't want to do that, it's because they want to be able to employ foreign people, even when Caymanians are available. That's the specific reason that is rejected. And then, of course, there was a time when rollover was supposed to apply to government. It was said it shouldn't apply to government. And basically, as much as I benefited from the fact that there was no rollover in government, but at the end of the day, it has proved to be a problem because a lot of people who have not been rolled over in government and got status, they have stacked up the middle management positions, and Caymanians are not going to find their way through there.
Yep.
And the problem is that also once they get status, they don't make decisions as the new Caymanians. They make decisions as Jamaican, British, or whatever they are, and they establish these enclaves. And that becomes a problem. And then you've got, of course, poor labor law enforcement. There's this unfair employment commission which they've put together, which to me, it's good, but it's not a fundamental change to anything. Then you've got the issue of foreclosures, which they were talking about last week. Finally, the government has been forced now to say, well, we'll look into this matter. Because I think Kenneth Bryan and a lot of other people have really fought hard, and government now is looking into this matter. But basically, because of the failure, and this is what I want to conclude on, because there has not been any telling policies to change the trend, the society, to me, has evolved into three categories. And I'll be very brazen to say this. One, you've got the upper class, which is mainly white people who came to Cayman like in more recent times. Those white people are the upper class, together with a few Caymanians and a few people, say, from Jamaica and the Caribbean. That's the top class. And those are the ones who control the policies, actually. And then you've got second class. It'll be the Jamaicans mainly and Caribbean people mainly, a few Caymanians, a few white people in that class. And finally, and significantly, you've got now a third class, which is comprised mainly of Caymanians. Okay, and then with a few people from the Caribbean and from the UK and other places and so forth. And because these problems have not been dealt with, this is the stratification that has now resulted in the society. Will government do anything about this? I keep hoping, but I suspect that it won't happen. Why? Because I do not believe government is working for the interest of Caymanians. They are working mainly for the interest of that first top class there, because really those are the handlers of the government. The government is there, but those are the handlers. They control that space where policy is conceived, developed, and reduced into law.
Yep. Thank you very much, Billy, for that. And I'd just like to add to that my take on the three categories, while Billy pointed them out as the non-Caymanians, the non-white, non-Caymanians, and then the Caymanians and the other nationalities, and then the last group. I classify them as the haves, the think they haves, and the have-nots. The think that they haves are the ones now who are encountering difficulties because they thought that they had something. Those are the ones now who, when they lose their jobs, unable to pay their mortgages, end up in foreclosures as well. One more caller. We're going to take that caller before we go to the break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Can you hear me?
Hearing you, just hearing you.
Hello.
Go right ahead.
Hello. Oh, good morning. Mr. O.C.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. The captain called in regards about police officers. I was moving up and down and didn't catch the full sense of what he was saying.
He was talking about the tent on the vehicles that you can't see. There was a vehicle parked in his area or crossed in his area, and you couldn't see the driver because of the tent on the vehicle, and he was questioning whether or not we have a standard for police vehicles and a different standard for private personal vehicles.
Well, there's a lot of private cars out here just as bad as the police cars. So, how are we going to get that corrected now? They're going to say that they can do it, but we can't do it. So one is good for the goose, good for the gander, even though they're officers and so forth. But anyhow, I just want to say that here in Newland, they're coming in here like they're driving a race car. They go with a bump in those police cars, and they're flying in a 15, 25 miles only. Mm-hmm. And they are the law. They should not be driving the way they're driving. And when they hit the bottom of the government vehicles on those speed bumps. I think they need to have some more care and concern for our government police cars. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to say that I was listening to the House a couple of days ago, and Austin was asking two questions that really hit me.
Okay.
When they gave up that money to the owners of the homes trying to bring down their mortgage, the $35,000 they were giving up, they went to the pension to draw. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They draw $35,000.
Mm-hmm.
He was asking, did anyone in that category lost their home in the foreclosure that's been going on lately? And another question, has anyone put anything back into the pension plan to build up the pension plan for the future?
Because there's there's a requirement for them to do that. Yes.
Yeah, but like he was saying, they don't have no full proof that they're actually doing it. They need to. I'm not saying me, but they need to have proof that this money is being put back into the pension, because in years to come, it's going to be hell for the government to take care of all these people on this island, regardless of the paper Caymanians or non-paper Caymanians, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 to 1 is going to be the paper Caymanians who get help before our own Caymanians, which is sad. I'm going to let you go. I was talking to Sterling about the allowance for us to go overseas to shop, right?
Right.
What is it, 350?
350 CI, yes. Per person.
Per person,
yes.
I asked Mr. Mark Field a couple of months ago on your radio why the dollar is 80 cents, US is 80 cents to the Cayman 125.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I worded exactly how he did, and in other words, then we made ours 125 because we had to export, so we would be going overseas to do our shopping, right? If we so have to go overseas to do our shopping, which we've been doing from day one, because we have actually nothing here. We can't export anything. Rum cakes and some rum to digest to some people. So I'm trying to ask, if CSC from day one that our dollar had to be $1.25 to the US 80 cents, why is it that we, the people of this island, has to be at a limit coming back in here, going shopping to the U.S.? If we have a business, it's different. But for home use, we should not have to pay $1 for home use products or sheets or pillows or whatever we may go and bring in on that airport.
Well, caller, I would imagine that those items that you bring in that are completely duty-free do not factor into that $350 that you're allowed.
Or see, how do you know what you got duty-free? I have never heard anyone tell me in the airport yet that you have a duty-free item, you have to pay for that. I only heard that some time ago on the radio when Ardenay was talking about it and so forth. I don't even know what is duty-free at the airport coming from anywhere of the United States of America. You understand? They have never told me,
apparently it's a long list, and I think when the collector was on the show, I think the question may have been asked about whether or not that list was available, as well. But there is not a published list that you can actually get a hard copy of.
I think think that when people travel up from here, that should be a red copy and photocopies of that and put in your passport so when you go on that plane, you can sit down and relax and look at those
It's
things.
huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge.
You know what I mean? But I still say that $350 CI is no money in these days to free the people to go abroad to shop to come back to the Cayman Islands. They say shop Cayman, so after time you can't find what you want. Or when you go to one store today, the price is so and so. You go back tomorrow, the price is a different price. Well, you just told me yesterday it was $3, so today it's $4. I'm like, excuse me? We don't have no price control in this island.
All right. Caller, we're going to ask you to leave us there. We've got past our break, but I gave you that little flexibility because I know you always say I don't give you enough time. But please feel free to call back because I want to hear from you. Know what I want to hear from you about? I want to hear from you about the baggage fee for that Cayman Airways has put in. On that but you picked me off. Well, you can call back on that later on, but we have to go to the break now, folks. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio, so we're having a conversation with the most important people in the world, and that's our listening audience. One person sent a WhatsApp and said, preserve breadfruits in a drum or a bathtub of water overnight. Says we used to float them, quote unquote, float them in our wells, which acted as a fridge. We also buried them in a mound of sand overnight, which acted as a fridge for all our bread kind and kept them cool at night. If you wanted then to ripen it for cake, leave it in the sand during the day. Parboil a breadfruit whole, then slice it and freeze it in Ziploc bags or a plastic lid container with water. So the floating had to do with putting them, and now I remember that quite clearly. Yeah, you used to put them in wells, and of course, when you had yam and cassava and things of that nature, you would also take them and bury them in the sand, like the writer has said to us as well. Any calls, Miss Susan? No phone calls. Two calls. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Oh, say good morning.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Not bad, yourself?
Okay.
I just want to give a thanks to a friend of the family had a little accident yesterday up at the roundabout there by the Red Bay, not Red Bay, the other one further up. Is that Red Bay?
The one near to the school?
Yeah. Had a little accident yesterday, and the police came and everything, and I just want to say a shout out to the police. I mean, they were very professional and they dealt with it. It was a young girl, and I mean, they treated her so respectful and made her feel like it's not the end of the world. I think what might have happened was the road was wet, and I'm not sure exactly, but I'm just kind of speculating a little bit. I think she might have went too close to the roundabout. And I think one of the wheels might have hit that and caused her to spin around. And I think something like that might have happened. But yeah, the police was very helpful and very professional. So I want to just give a thanks to them this morning for their professionalism yesterday in handling the matter.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. And that reminds me, I had a little fender bender the other day as well. It really was a situation where someone was actually taking their road test and ran into the side of my vehicle. Of all the accidents to have, the person taking their test, and the police came, and of course they jokingly said, to the driving examiner, I'm sure that person failed their driving test. But again, they were extremely professional, very, very professional in their approach and everything. And I promise that give a big shout out to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, their traffic unit as well, for their professionalism also. Let's go to the phone lines again. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good Morning, Lucy.
Morning. How's it going?
Good. Can't ride yet, though.
Why? What happened? Tell me why.
The back delivery broke off and the trading just keep tripping up. Why you let me on your bicycle?
You need to. You sound like you need to go to a professional mechanic. Craig will have to pay for this commercial after this, but check Craig Cycles out. He can do the work for you.
Well, about 4 years ago, I called the policeman about this tinted glass.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer they gave me, they said the only car supposed to be driving down with tinted glass when we had a dog. We had remember when we had a special car for the dog?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And said that's the only people, this is what the policeman told me. I don't know if it's true or not. But
how long ago that was, you said?
That was Miss Juliana was the deputy premier, so that's at least. That was during McKee was the premier.
Yeah, and that was pre 2013.
Yeah, around. It was about 4 years ago because she was at least 2 years. That's what the policeman told me, that the only people who saw me driving up down with tinted glass is a special car that they don't want. I agree that they don't want to see. They don't want the people to see that they have dogs inside of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a very good reason for how tinted glass is. But like other gentlemen say, I have seen plenty of policemen running up down with tinted glass, and you can't see them. And like what the man said, if we can't do it, why they do it? But I would give 100% reason for the dogs. You have a good day.
Okay, caller, thank you very much for that. Also, no more calls at this point in time. I want to touch briefly, and hopefully I can conclude this before we go to our headline news at 9 o'clock. But one writer, one of our listeners had written into us about a particular situation with permanent residents and the fact that their application had been deferred from 2014, and that individual had a meeting with senior government officials and was advised that it was not her, that the person's fault, that they did nothing wrong. They pointed out that I was advised that it was not my fault, I did nothing wrong. There was an issue with the immigration law due to oversight, which would be corrected, yet I am here unable to get my PR reinstated after being revoked. I was a PR dependent from 2003 and with employment's rights from 2008, paying PR fees of $20,650 annually. The person's husband then left the island and went to live in another country. And he has received now residence in that country. Says that it wasn't a marriage of convenience, and goes on to talk about various things. Now, I am advised by the immigration department or someone within the immigration department that there are persons who fall into a particular category where the board has no power to act on that particular application. And that is when a person like this individual applies later or late, usually in the 9th year or after the 9th year, and as a result of that, the board has no power to deal with the application because the immigration law is specific when it comes to permanent residence and when a person may apply for permanent residence. So as a result of that, the board had no power to act on that because the application has to be made within year 8. And I'll read the specific section of the immigration law in relation to that when we come back from our headline news at 9 o'clock. So please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. As I pointed out earlier, no guests in the studio, and if they were to come now, it would probably be a little bit too late anyway. No, we've been advised actually that because of some scheduling issues that they're unable to be here. There are things that are taking precedence over this. As a matter of fact, what the entity that was coming in to discuss the topic that they were coming in to discuss, those activities are actually have started to take place now as well. And the person who was due to be here is really one of the coordinators of that. So as a result of that, they're unable to be here. Section 30, subsection 1 of the immigration law, 2000 and whatever revision, reads, any person who has been and is legally and ordinarily resident in the islands for a period of at least 8 years, but not more than 9 years, other than, and it gives different categories of persons who are in that other than category, may apply in the prescribed form and manner to the board or the chief immigration officer for permission for himself, his spouse, and his dependents, if any, to reside permanently in the islands, and such application shall be accompanied by the prescribed application fee, issue fee, dependent fee, and the annual fee with respect of the first year. And then it goes on to say that notwithstanding subsection 1, where at the commencement of the Immigration Amendment Number 2 Law 2013, a person has already been legally and ordinarily resident in the islands in excess of 9 years, he shall be entitled to a period of 90 days from such commencement within which to apply under this section for the right to reside permanently in the Cayman Islands. So again, this looks like it's a sunset provision that was put in there with the Immigration Amendment Number 2 Law 2013, and it allowed for persons who had been legal and ordinarily resident in the island in excess of 9 years was entitled to a period of 90 days from such commencement within which to apply. So that person would have missed the opportunity to apply after those 90 days. Like I said, I am going to be looking at the amendments to the immigration law again that went to the Legislative Assembly last month to see exactly what has come out of those amendments, to see whether or not a person who failed to apply within that specific period of time but have exceeded the 9 years, whether or not they are now given the opportunity to apply. It would again seem as if it may be one of those unintended consequences of the immigration law, because you end up with situations where persons have been here for over 20 years. They've definitely been here for longer than the 9 years, but because we put that 8-9 year limitation in place, if they don't fall within that category, then they're prevented altogether from being able to apply. But we have several calls queued up, so let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Blackfanzo.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Listen, I'm just calling in to say that, I guess, description of the state of the types of Cayman that we have that you shared.
Mm-hmm.
You need to trademark that, because that is absolutely brilliant, and it's fact. But unfortunately, a lot of people are are not as astute to label it and describe it in the way that you did, but that was absolutely brilliant. And you should start every show with reminding your listeners as to what Cayman currently is and what it looks like. And the reason why I say that, sir, is, again, when you being in government can't be easy. It has to be possibly the hardest job anybody will do, especially if you don't have a plan and you don't stick to certain guidelines or understand what your budgetary constraints are. Mm-hmm. But I would say this: the Premier is right in the sense that we have these sort of issues in social services and people that are dependent on the government, going forward in their old age and so on and so forth. However, bearing that in mind, I think it's important for us all to ponder, especially the government and those in a leadership role, if we know that we're struggling to manage a population of 60,000 people and we can't seem to get that right from a social services perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from an educational perspective, why are we hell-bent on growing the population to about 100,000 people where we can't seem to get it right now? What is even more shocking is the persons in leadership that are now acknowledging that we have significant structural and systemic issues. They've been in office elected more than 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So that's a 20-year period. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that they can acknowledge and own the issues now, but anybody who has served more than 2 terms, none of this should have crept up on them and be a surprise to them. So telling us now in bewilderment how shocking it is and how disappointing it is, you've been collecting a government paycheck for 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. That's at least $150,000 a year in benefits alone over a 20-year period. What in the world have you been doing from a policy perspective whereby 20 years down the road, you suddenly realize that we've got issues? We've had these issues for 40 years, and we haven't really taken any measures to deal with them. So, again, I think people need to understand that you can give a freshman MLA a pass because they're just coming into this thing straight. But any veteran politician that is now speaking to issues that surprise them, the question is, what island have you been living on? Mm-hmm. What government have you been representing? And why has your head been in the sand for so long? Because none of this is a surprise. It's all written in reports. The reports are on somebody's shelf. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of the Caymanian people are not the priority. You know what the priority is? A select few special interest groups that represent things like, they can't tell us how much money we were about to spend on the airport, but we know they've gone past the $55 million budgeted for that. Someone
called me and said that and I'm only repeating this because someone called, no proof of it, but there may be something like a $20 million cost overrun.
So we're now into $75 million. Okay, if that is real, that's a $75 million cost for a project that was budgeted at $55 million. Let's go a step further. They can't tell us how much they've spent on services to get the cruise berthing project to this point, but I will tell you this: it's north of $10 million. Imagine if we were to actually consider sitting down as a government. You now have the UDP and the PPM sitting together, but is there a plan for the country? We're still doing the same things where we're looking out for particular groups of persons and financiers of campaigns, whilst the rest of the country is kind of like, boy, I guess we're going to need a supplementary here, we're going to need a supplementary there. The point is, Mr. O.C., you have been a chief immigration officer. You cannot build a country and grow the population without a plan. And that plan has to encompass multiple levels of society, and nobody is doing it. So all they're doing is thinking about the next election. They're thinking about getting reelected and saying that they did this and they did that. And these are all Band-Aids over a gaping gunshot wound. The economic model of the Cayman Islands cannot sustain these grandiose plans of $300, $400 million docks to appease the Minister of Finance and his lackeys or financiers. We cannot continue to have projects where there is no fiscal management and discipline. If all you have is $55 million, you get the $65 million, that should be good enough. But the government continues to do the change order game where contractors make a pile of money, but when you look at the site, how many Caymanians are actually on these sites working and taking a paycheck home? When you look at construction in Cayman in general, how many Caymanians are on the construction site participating in this construction boom and taking home a salary to look after themselves and their responsibilities? This government, like the one before that, are building a country for everybody else except for Caymanians.
Caller, I'm going to ask you to leave us there. We want to try to accommodate the other callers as well. Thank you very much for your observations. Very, very strong points that you have made as well. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, is it?
Good morning again.
Yeah, that's what the devil said, but bad roots in the sun. I wasn't just sand, it was the wet sand with the salt transferred by the seaside.
Okay. Yeah, it seems as if there is some consensus on that, but it's probably only for like one night or so, as well, not for a long, extended period of time.
The thing was bad, and stem down in the water and leave a little, with top of the breadfruit.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I would talk something else, but I was too busy, but not again, too busy.
Mm-hmm.
But just two things I want to mention, misconceptions people have a word. That remember in the year 2000, everyone was expecting many things to happen, right? But what they don't realize is that Jesus was actually born in the year 4 of our calendar. So 2004 was the 2,000 years after. And in that year, we had more natural catastrophes in the world than any other time. And also the Mayan calendar, where they said end of the world was 2012, right? Actually, it is not the end of the world, it is end of the age. So we go from the Piscean into the Aquarian age, right? Anyway, other things are hard, but you don't have much time for it.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. Thank you much. I think we can squeeze the other caller in before the break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Welcome back.
Hello.
Good morning again, caller.
Good morning. Talking about Cayman Airways and the luggage cost. Someone said I went away to Miami the other day, and the first bag is 20, and the other one is 75. I don't know how true that is. I just heard it on the news it's $20 per bag. No,
I think it was first of all. Is it July, or I thought it was coming into effect in August?
I don't know when it's going to come.
I'll look it up to see. I'll look it up.
The first one was in Miami last week, and he was talking about it yesterday. He said that first bag 20, next one is 75. I don't know if that's the poster up on the wall at Cayman Airways counter in Miami. I don't know.
Okay, I'll
he
check
just
it.
say that it's $20 to $75 for luggage. But I know in Tampa, Cayman Airways counter, when they start charging people for these bags and all these different flights, I was talking to one of the managers, and I know him through my godfather up there. And he was saying that he hoped that Cayman Airways never, ever have to go to that level to start charging for bags, knowing that people that come into the U.S. shopping is coming to shop for themselves and for the country. And he was hoping that Cayman Airways would never charge for luggage. But it's here now, and there's nothing that we can do about it. It's going to hurt to the core for some people, but it's going to hurt. But OC, I'm going to leave it with this. We got about 3-4 hotels going to be starting up here in the island. Are all those hotels getting free concessions?
They probably are given some concessions, more than likely.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Usually due to concessions.
Yeah. I hope it's not going to be 100%, and I hope it's not going to be to the fact that they're going to break our government. Our government down the line with these 4 new hotels on Cayman and still looking for jobs. This is ridiculous. And then we got to pay to bring a comforter in. And we got to only have allowance of $350 CI to go abroad to shop and come back here. This is ludicrous. Who are we building Cayman for? Like that gentleman just said, who are we building Cayman for? Where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible, but thank you.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we'll have about 12 or 13 minutes left to go in the show. If you want to call up, please do so very quickly, because we're going to be shortening the amount of time that we're going to give each person to call in if we have people queued up. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guest in the studio this morning, so we've had open mic for the entire period. Very good conversations going on various topics. Last caller spoke about concessions given to developers in the Cayman Islands. And I'll follow up on that and say, when do we reach the point where if we are such an attractive jurisdiction, not only for tourists, but for people to do business in the Cayman Islands, when do we reach that point where we no longer have to offer incentives for people to come and invest, to do business in the Cayman Islands, especially when it comes to tourist accommodations, to hotels? If it is so good, if it is so attractive, and if they're so attracted to come to the Cayman Islands, then we shouldn't really have to hand out any incentives to them. And government needs to look at that particular consideration going forward, whether or not we need those incentives as well. Because there are some charlatans who show up on our shores as well, and they have these grandiose schemes. They're going to do this, they're going to do that, sometimes only to attract investors themselves and to later on end up fleecing those investors by the projects that they're saying that they're going to start not coming to fruition in the Cayman Islands as well. I'm told we have two callers that I want to take, but before we go to those two callers, I cannot ignore my faithful listeners who write in as well, and very quickly says, please allow me to highlight a very dangerous road junction, namely the roundabout by Lions Center and King's Sports Center on Crew Road heading towards Georgetown. Traffic exits the Sports Center and crosses Crew Road and then turns right to join the two lanes of Crew Road immediately as the road enters the roundabout. It does this without pausing. The dangerous situation exists because as they make the right turn, they enter their own dedicated lane entering the roundabout and appear to believe that because of this, they have priority over traffic entering the roundabout from the right lane on Crew Road. This results in an accident waiting to happen as Crew Road right-hand lane traffic suddenly meets traffic on the right intent on occupying its lane. You cannot have three lanes immediately entering a two-lane roundabout without any time to merge. It is very dangerous. Very good point. He says, I have seen so many near misses. Traffic exits the sports center and then charge across the road and lay claim to the lays claim to the inner lane of the roundabout. Some drivers from the sports center pause, but there are those who doesn't appear to be any sign or road markings compelling them to stop. Good point, good point. And now with the redesign of the roundabout there, the question is, do we need that exit from King's Sports Center, or should they be required now to drive down to the Hurley's, the Grand Harbor roundabout, and then join the traffic going that way? We try to accommodate everyone on the roads, and we cannot do that. We have to do what is in the best interest and the safety of the road users as well. So consideration should be given to closing that little entrance to the roundabout there and forcing all drivers leaving King's Sports Center to go to the Hurley's Grand Harbor roundabout and come around to get back to where, if they're heading west or northwest in that direction as well. Two callers. Those are going to be the last two calls for the morning. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, OC. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine. And yourself?
Oh, I'm doing well as you can expect, I guess, you know.
Okay. Any day above ground is a good day to start off with.
Of course. Still gonna be here for a long time. I want to say that what I see happening here on the coastline, that there's so much construction going up on the coastline, including the beaches, not just the coastline with coral, but beaches as well. The other day I listened to my good friend, Mr. Dr. Steve McPhail, and his statement, he said he don't want to offend anybody because of certain things. Well, let me put the record straight. I am extremely offended by what I see happening to the island of Grand Cayman, my beloved island. There's so much things going on here, and I pay keen attention to what especially politicians are saying on the talk show. The biggest thing now, it's nothing about the internal affairs of the island, but the external, what's going on with the UK, with the banking system, and trying to divert, in my opinion, the attention. Why? Show me one of those politicians that are taking the bull by the horns in doing something about this beach access, that allocating $10 million and by the high water mark. That was all concocted by our own politicians that's doing this act to the Caymanians, unacceptable in my views, what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing has been about it. All you can hear about the UK, this and UK, that. I want to say quickly, I remember one prominent Caymanian, lots of them are up there, we need to get rid of the UK because they're not doing us any good. That particular person is putting nice pictures on Facebook, sending them back about the lovely apartment they got free and how it's so decorated and all this kind of thing. This is the kind of double standard that we got about criticizing the UK while they have their faults, don't get me wrong. But we got so much hypocrites in this island. Look at where I'm living by Papagallo. The horse manure, the tourists and people walking, it's their flies taking it. If a rain comes, it's washed right in the middle of the street. I have called the Environment Department numerous times. It all falls, on deaf ears. Nothing has been done. So I want to go on the record and say, now, I am extremely offended by the internal affairs of this island, that we're paying people, fantastic salaries, and nothing has been done. What we have got in this island, I'm sorry, it's unacceptable, and they take it for granted that they'll be elected again because what? We are the minority of voters as far as I'm concerned. Those that have status in foreign nationals, who I call them, they are the majority, so they're not worried about us anymore. But what we have got is what we wanted, and what we got now is more than we wanted, my friend. So
thank you very much for that,
caller. Something to think about,
Yep, thank you very much for that. Last caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
See, how are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. I just wondering what's happening. Concern, not only wondering, but concerned what's happening about our governor, and why is our representatives not at least coming out and telling us, even if it's...
I don't think our representatives know a whole lot about it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he was just sent home. I think he stepped on a few people's, and we're left here to assume anything. But I think he stepped on a few people's toes, and I don't want you here no more. But England, if you go by the Constitution, it's not going to be a Caymanian governor ever, unless the Constitution is
advanced.
Yeah, and I know my time is up because you were saying that. Anyway, if you come Northwest Point Road from the four-way stop, there is 3 new We don't know what they are because we don't see any signs up as yet. But they're building. We suspect it is condos, all on the ocean front. So now, 3, one right after the other. One opposite the Holiness Church, Wesleyan Church. Further down the road, just a little distance down the road, there's another big one going down. Then on
Caymanians are putting them down, or do we know?
No. We don't know. We don't know.
Well, not normally they would have to. There be some notice issued as far as planning is concerned, and adjacent landowners and stuff like that would have to be notified as well.
But OC, it is not. Usually they put down a shade or an office, and then they put up a big sign saying what these buildings are.
Mm-hmm. They do that normally for commercial purposes, not really to inform the public, but I guess if they're still looking to sell units or pre-sell and stuff like that, they'll put those up.
I know all about that, but as far as I'm concerned, we not be able to see the ocean at all now on this strip, unless we go down on the iron shore to see. But I don't have the time, and I wish you a good day. But we got to talk about these things because it is concerning us Caymanians that can't even get jobs in these apartments or condos and stuff like that, and our representatives is not looking after that either.
Okay, caller, I'm going to ask you to leave us there. I'm going to try to squeeze a little time in here because some persons have really taken the opportunity to write in, and I want to see if Ms. Susan will allow me to cover them. First of all, I'm asking, the caller asks about the governor, and maybe we will have Boris Johnson as our next governor, because I see here where Ms. Susan has brought it to my attention, and when you go on to the BBC, Boris Johnson has resigned as the foreign secretary amid growing political crisis over the UK's Brexit strategy. So that he's the second senior cabinet minister to quit within hours following he followed the Brexit secretary David Davis. I will predict that the Theresa May government will not last much longer, and even though they don't want this to happen before Brexit, you can almost expect that there will be snap elections. There will be a general elections in the UK before then, because all of the building blocks are starting to crumble. One of our listeners has said, good morning. In your view, how feasible would it be for the U.S. Embassy staff to visit Cayman to issue/renew U.S. visas once a year? As a Caymanian, I would be more than willing to pay all expenses normally incurred, such as costs of Jamaica visa, airfare to Jamaica, hotel rental, transportation fees, plus the normal visa applications fee, for that convenience of not having to travel. Just a thought, your views, please. It was something that we had before. We no longer have it. We could ask the government to push for it again and see what sort of compromise can be arrived at in that regard. But I certainly understand the callers, the writers' point of view with that as well. And there's another one in relation to, this one is really a safety one, and I'm going to read this. I would like to bring a concern of mine to the public's attention. Drivers, please be entirely careful when driving behind flatbed trucks. In my view, I have witnessed a certain company vehicle packed, overloaded with building and other materials, and it was quite noticeable that some of the items were leaning on the far left and would have fallen off if the driver never pulled off the road. Those items were very heavy, and they weren't strapped down with proper strapping. And I think that if the driver never stopped, that a nasty accident would have taken place. I'm appealing for such companies and their drivers to please strongly consider public safety and that of their own as well. If I see this again, I will be calling names along with the license plate number. Thank you, sir. And I would have appreciated if you'd call the name and the license plate number now, because we would have certainly aired it as well, because we continue to stress about road safety in the Cayman Islands, and we're seeing more and more abuses taking place on the roads rather than improvements as well. Cayman Airways baggage, cost, paying for baggage will come into effect on the 1st of August. The 1st of August. And they will introduce a fee of US $20 per bag on checked bags for normal economy class on all international flights. For New York and Chicago flights, the fees will be US $25 for the first bag and $35 for the second checked bag each way. Baggage allowance and fees for domestic flights between Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman will remain unchanged. However, international connections will be subject to the applicable international baggage fee. That means that if you're traveling from Cayman Brac to Grand Cayman to connect on an international flight, you will pay the fees on the international leg of the journey as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to lend a helping hand. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. And just remember the saying, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. So you carry someone along on your shoulders. You don't think of the weight, because he is your brother. I say to you, continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. John Sterling, Dwayne Ebanks at 12 noon for Talk Today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.